back on lunch. We are about to start a session on AI governance and a little bit on ITIL version 5, because by coincidence ITIL version 5 happened since we planned this session. My name is Roman, and I am a senior ITIL architect. So if you don't like something in ITIL, it's probably the one to blame. If you do like something in ITIL, there is a list of participants, and when you see the new ITIL Foundation book, you will be impressed with the size of that list. Like 10 pages list of people who have been involved in different capacities and different time. This is Dmitry, who is currently director of our partner programs, who deals with consulting partners and tool vendors, and to some extent with training partners, which means that I'm mostly describing the theory, and he is responsible for bringing some practical tools to our partners to help them do their work. That's how it has been for many decades. We have been working together for about 25 years now, and for most of that time, I was responsible for the training part, telling people the theory. He was responsible for consulting, turning that theory into practice. And somehow we ended up at PeopleCert doing very similar things, but under different titles. Dmitry will start with announcing some very new development, which very few people know of so far. So you are among the first ones to see that part of the presentation. After that exciting part, most of the time will be about AI governance and why it's important and what we do in ITIL to help with getting control of adoption of AI before you actually rush to adopt it. Or maybe at least soon after. And then at the end, I will have literally 3 slides to tell you a bit more about ITIL 5 than you've already heard in the opening presentation today from Adam, because he already covered everything. That's the plan for the next hour. Without further ado, I will leave all this stage to Dmitry, and I will join at the very end for 3 slides. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Glad to see all of you. Let me start with where should we start? With agenda, but Roman already covered it. So let's jump to something that has just been released. And you are literally the second group in the world that hears this story from us. Let me ask you, could you please raise your hands if you heard anything about ITIL maturity model? Who knows what ITIL maturity model is? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, amazing. Almost everybody in this auditorium. So, ITIL maturity model is mostly about checking if organizations do the right things. But what actually ITIL maturity model doesn't pay attention to directly is the performance. Are these organizations able to reach the right results? So this is the second question. And we would like to cover this gap. We would like to fill this gap, and we're introducing the new model, which is called ITIL Performance Benchmarking Model, and it's all about performance. And originally, when we started thinking about this way, of course, everybody knows that performance in IT is so multifaceted way. And you actually need to address so many different things to be able to judge about performance in a holistic way. So it's a challenge to come up with the model like this. We actually started with the ITIL maturity model, because in the ITIL maturity model, we have something that is called Objectives Cascade. And the Objectives Cascade connects 4 strategic business areas with some IT management enablers. And these IT management enablers are then mapped to supporting practices, supporting ITIL practices. And the idea is very simple. If you want to become better at this, you probably should be paying attention to that. And for this, you might implement or improve your practices, this and that practice. So this is quite an easy thing ideologically. And we started using this Objectives Cascade to come up with a set of metrics that could be used to measure the performance in a more holistic, in a more meaningful way. And we ended up with a list of 40 to 45 metrics that need to be measured in order we can pay attention to all these different aspects of the performance in IT. And of course, it's not benchmarkable. Of course, it's not something that you could easily work with. So we started applying some criteria to exclude some metrics from this set before we came up with the performance benchmarking model. And now I would like to very shortly introduce the idea of performance benchmarking model, and actually also to invite you to participate in the first survey to collect this information so that we can provide you with not only the ideas of what to measure, but also with some baselines to look at. So the idea of performance benchmarking model is quite simple. We actually help organizations to understand how good they are at managing digital technology, digital products and services. It's built on the ITIL objectives cascade. It uses focused set of 12 metrics, so we ended up with 12 metrics, which is still a lot for benchmarking purposes, but these key metrics really tell the story, really can be connected to some important business outcomes. And if you measure these metrics, if you understand this value, if you can compare these values with your peers, it's a good thing. It's not necessarily your targets, but it's something to think of, something to digest. And for these 12 metrics, so this is the sort of metrics, it's just on the screen. So we have these 4 strategic focus areas: business alignment and integration, organizational agility, organizational resilience, and operational excellence. And for each domains, we have 3 to 4, 2 to 4 metrics that really play the key role in these areas and really need to be measured. What's important is that for each metric from this set, we actually provide a unified description, just one slide description. This is just an example. And this description, it not only includes some basic information about this metric, it also gives you some measurement instruction, because we need to pay attention so that things are measured consistently across different organizations. And what probably even it's even more important is this analysis section, which gives some ideas where to look at if you would like to improve your performance according to this metrics. It might be some ITIL practices you might be thinking of. It might be other metrics you should be looking at. It might be other people you should talk to or ask some questions to, stuff like this. So these 3 areas, description, definition, measurement, and analysis, comes for all 12 metrics in the set. And this is that you can use even for your own purposes, not necessary for benchmarking purposes. It could be just used for your own ideas how to measure and how to work with these measurements. So how to benefit? We are currently starting the international survey to collect first information about this metrics, first values of this metrics, so we can form this baseline. And we're inviting organizations to participate, to share your data. The important benefit is that those companies who participate, who share their data, they will receive the full report, which comes out of this exercise when the report is ready. I am really hope that we will be ready, let's say in April, May. It will take some time to not only to collect this information, but also to analyze this information and to come up with the report with some narration and meaningful insight. So this is where we currently are with this initiative. We are just starting. The page this QR code leads to was just published literally today. So it's a fresh thing. The survey is started. The questionnaire for the survey is open. So if you would like to take a look at this, if you'd like to share information, maybe to find later when you are where you are compared to your peers, this might be a good start. Highly invite you to participate. The more companies we have, the more questions, the more answers we have from different companies, the better statistics will be. Not only general statistics, but also with some slices by industry, by regions, because some metrics will be industry specific, some metrics will be specific to company size and to geography. So please, you're invited, take part in the survey, let's collect this information. It might be quite beneficial for companies. And later, this will not only be available as some information for your own advantage, it will also be, it can also be used by our consulting partners when they engage with specific companies and do some research. They can use this information, this set of metrics, or the extended set of metrics to better understand the performance side of the things.
Did I promise to leave the stage to Dmitry for the next 40 minutes?
You failed, yes.
Apparently I lied and failed, yes. So, couple of things to add to all this. Just like maturity model was originally designed for our partners' exclusive use and was available only to our accredited consulting partners, this one is, from Dmitry's perspective, a tool that will help and support our consulting partners. However, when we publish the maturity model, just to check, how many accredited consulting partners with Axelis are in the room right now?
Many?
Less than a half. So there are none, because you're all in these industry organizations. What we did 2 years after publishing the maturity model, which not everyone is aware of, we included all the capability criteria per each practice in the actual practice guides. So if you have access to the ITIL practice guides and you use them for your work, then at the end of every practice guide, you can find a set of the very same capability criteria which are being used by consultants when they assess your capability level through a formal assessment. So you can do self-assessment of your capability levels based on just practice guides available through the membership, which has been and still is the most cost-efficient way to get access to ITIL, because for like about 120 pounds per year, you get access to all our publications apart from the foundation book. So all practices and all other books of all our not only ITIL, of all our frameworks. So you can use it for self-assessment. Similarly here, we wanted to become a benchmarking model, but in order to become a valid benchmarking model, we need to have some sufficient snapshot in the beginning. And instead of waiting for consultants to conduct a paid assessment of a sufficient number of organizations, we invite organizations to do it themselves, and in exchange to get access to the first snapshot in its entirety through our reports. And if you participate in this, then you not only get some insights from just thinking where we are against each of the metric, but you will also get some understanding of where other organizations are when you receive access to the report. And we are running this not only in the UK, it's supposed to be an international initiative, so you will see organizations across the globe and different industries are assessed, self-assessed, assessment conducted by a consultant, you can do it. If not, you can continue doing self-assessment and receiving that benchmarking reports. So practical takeaways for you if you want to know more about your organization. Each practice guide includes capability criteria, the same as the maturity model that we use, and this adds a performance perspective. So you can measure how good you are at the capabilities, at what you can do, and how good you are at what you actually achieve. So it's not just a marketing thing, it's a practical tool for you. Yeah.
So what's the relationship with the practice success factors? I think you might have touched on it.
So the capability criteria in the maturity model are all mapped to the practice success factors. So basically the logic is that in order to fulfill the purpose of the practice, you need to develop those practice success factors. And all criteria in the capability measurement, they are linked to those success factors.
Gotcha.
So that's how that part is designed. There is also a publicly available description of the, let's say, anatomy of the maturity model, and on ITIL.com.
Yeah.
Yep. And you can get from there how it all works.
Yeah, on ITIL.com, both ITIL maturity model and ITIL performance benchmarking model are published, so you can find more information there. Does it make any sense? Because from my perspective, I came from consultancy. I used to work as a consultant for over 20 years. So from my perspective, many customers, I would say not so many customers understand what maturity is. It's something abstract to some of them. But they do understand what performance is, and they pay attention to their performance and how it dynamically changes over time. So does it make any sense to you? Yes? Good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The one gap for us, which I'm hoping this will help, is the relationship between a maturing capability or practice and an actual tangible business benefit from that as well. So bridging that gap.
So yeah, I would expect exactly this purpose from this thing. So thank you so much. Now we can safely switch to the main topic of this presentation, which is about AI governance. we actually have quite a packed slide deck. Lots of slides, lots of details. I assume that these slide decks will be available for you after this event because I don't think that we will have enough time to discuss every single line on the slides because they are really loaded with information about what we currently provide as a guidance for companies, how to extend their existing technology governance system so that they can effectively address AI-specific challenges, AI-specific risks. So we will be probably explaining the ideas, but every single detail on the slide, you will probably be able to look at them after this if you will find this, if you find this information useful. I will refer to the slides because I don't remember all of them by heart. Please apologize for this. So in 2025, we actually did a lot of different things about AI, and 3 things are specifically mentioned here with some QR codes that lead to materials that you can download and benefit from. So the first, we have accredited tool vendor program. We started this accreditation program in 2023, 3 years ago, maybe even 4. And it's about evaluating ITSM tools presented in the market and accredited tool vendors based on what their tools do and the certification of their people. And it makes sense to many organizations so that it essentially creates a basic level of trust, something like an industry standard. This is a minimum set of things you would expect from every single organization that provides you ITSM tools today. So we have this program, and in 2025, we substantially revised the assessment of the tools, incorporating AI criteria so that we can understand how these tools bring AI features to end customers. Based on this set of criteria, we also conducted AI in ITSM tool research in Q3, Q4 2026, and the report is publicly available. This link leads to this report, so you can download and read it. And this report not only contains some findings and narration about what currently AI brings to the industry, but it also contains the entire list of criteria we use to evaluate this tool. So you can also take a look at this list as what we could expect from these tools, what we can ask from our tool vendors, what we could benefit from in our practices, and how we manage things. So this information is presented there. And finally, another work that we happen to be part of is called AI governance, white paper, something. And as far as I understand, you have access to physical copies of this paper because they are at our booth and you have them in your bags. So this is a short white paper, which is essentially just a contraction of the summary of data, the summary of knowledge that we currently have about governing of AI, using of AI in organizations. And based on this summary of knowledge, summary of information we collected during this exercise of developing this paper, we are actually creating new products as well. So we last year in December, I guess almost before Christmas, we issued for PC Plus members free of charge course like ITIL Introduction, ITIL Awareness, a very short course based on this paper. And we are currently working on other products with further guidance in this area, and I will expect this product to be available for the audience later in 2026. The authoring team for this paper is presented on the screen. I was absolutely honored to be part of this team, and it was a real joy to work together and discuss this idea, because it's interesting how different people have totally different perspectives, and they can add up and they can discuss these things and learn from each other and enrich their knowledge in this area by speaking to each other. And this is exactly what we actually expect from establishing or improving AI governance system in organizations. We actually need to talk to people with different perspective, because what we understand is that operational teams who deal with support issues daily, they understand how AI helps them. They understand how AI is used in organization differently from senior management, from someone else, from HR who may be concerned about how ethical our AI application work and how ethically they interact with end users connected to this tool. So the idea is to convene people with different backgrounds together so that they can elaborate on what they have and share their opinions and make this thing more sustainable. So this was the authoring team, exactly with this idea. You probably know some people here. We did this. We did this job. So one of the key findings that we all currently understand is that we're experimenting with AI technology much faster than we're experimenting with how we control this technology. The technology is powerful enough. We hear enough examples of how it can fail, of how it can let companies down, let people down by providing wrong information, by misguiding people in specific cases. I also was a victim of this technology a couple of times, and maybe you also have some examples in your past how this technology may not be that reliable, how we expect technology should be, because we actually, from technology, people are not reliable, but technology, it should be reliable. It should work as programmed, as created, as designed. And it's not always the case. So we actually cannot keep up with this speed. And you can easily find information. So for example, just a couple of days ago, I was reading a short article from one of the big consulting companies, and they boasted that they currently operated 25,000 AI agents. 25,000 of AI agents means that they probably need to be very thorough in how they manage changes, creating these agents, updating these agents, controlling these agents, or they should probably apply some specific ideas how to measure this pace of changes in the industry. So it's a great deal of a great deal of complexity, and I would say that the same applies to our companies as well, because we're experimenting with this technology much faster than we actually can apply effective control over this technology, over the challenges this technology brings. So speaking of challenges, we identified 4 areas and 10 key AI-specific risks for enterprises. And the idea was not just to end up with a long list of technology risks, but to focus on something that is quite specific to AI as a technology. So we have the decision authority and risk management as an area, ethical principles and responsible AI, data governance and performance management, and regulatory compliance and operational standards. And for each of these areas, we identify these key 10 risks. For these risks later on, we will suggest some heat map and some typical countermeasures that could be implemented in order to manage these things. But for now, just grasp the idea. We will not be discussing every single list here. And the examples here should be quite obvious, should be quite familiar to everybody in this audience, because we all come from the same industry. Before we jump to details, because the rest of the slide will be more or less about how to extend the existing IT governance system to cover AI. So before we jump here, let's make an important assumption. We assume that we already have some form of governance. We are not starting from absolutely greenfield. And we just need to adjust, to adapt, to extend this governance system so that it can deal with AI, instead of just let's create it from scratch, let's create from level 0. If we were about to start this, we have some references, some standards that we might take a look at to better understand how to proceed. So we are currently talking about the extending of the existing governance system instead of creating this system from scratch. And this is the rest of the presentation. How can we start where we are? The simple model that is presented in this paper covers 4 steps. So first is about assess and stress test the current governance system if it is efficient enough when dealing with AI-specific challenges. Step number 2, determine when the existing governance system fails and define the requirements, how it should be, how it should operate, design and implement adjustments, and then do regular review, because we know that all these management systems, they are not one-time exercises. They are something that we need to be paying attention to on a regular basis. So this slide deck, this white paper actually gives you a very practical approach 4-step approach. What exactly should we be doing to increase our capabilities and how we manage, how we govern AI systems, AI as a technology. Step number 1, assess and stress test the current governance system. 2 objectives: understand the current governance, manage AI-specific risks. And the key activities here, and for them we have some additional information. First, assess the current governance pattern to better understand how your company operates, how your company is governed. For this, we use the model which is currently part of ITIL transformation guide. And this model introduces the idea of patterns. So when today we already discussed ITIL practitioner publication from ITIL v3, which actually happened many years ago. And it was a great book. But this book essentially gave readers a set of practices that might be paying attention to in order to proceed with the implementation project. But what this paper didn't have more or less holistic approach, how to organize this transformation step by step, which steps need to be involved and how the steps could be actually taken. And when we were working on this transformation guide, the idea was to come up with this type of guidance, not only to mention some important things to pay attention to, but also to give a more or less holistic and specific step-by-step approach how to do things. And what we realized instantly is that the world is quite complex, and there are so many different organizations and so many different cases. So we will not be able to come up with a specific approach which would work in every single case. One size fits all approach just won't work here. It's a complex thing. So we identified some set of patterns, and depending on these patterns, this transformation guidance might be adjusted, might be used differently. And one type of patterns was governance patterns, and 2 others was execution patterns and initiation patterns. And essentially, you might just look at your transformation, understand how it matches this pattern, so to adjust this transformation guidance to your specific case. So governance patterns conveys the following ideas. Organizations might be governed differently. The evaluation model here is based on 2 main axes. One axis is about authority. The authority could be centralized, or the authority could be distributed to different people through delegation. And the second axis here is about insurance. Is it emergent? Is it structured? So are we prescribe things, how people should behave with specific procedures, specific steps, or we allow them a level of freedom unless, as long as they are aligned with some high-level guidance principles, whatever. And then we have some patterns, and these patterns could be evaluated when you understand how your company is being governed. And the next slide gives you a set of 10 specific criteria that we might use to understand how our company maps to these patterns. Another X that is not presented here, but it should be actually added here, is X which could probably look towards us. It's about maturity. So for example, if we are talking about directive organization implies that we have some specific rules and we actually require people to follow these rules. We are very specific, we are very direct, we are very procedural about how we govern this organization. But in some directive organization, this documentation, these procedural descriptions might not be actually very good. So it's also about maturity, how mature our governance is, and whatever pattern we use here, we might have better or worse higher maturity. And this is just another talk. It's not about this model, this slide, but it's just another dimension. So to understand how your organizations maps to this picture, we use this 10 criteria, 10 attributes coming with specific questions, and these questions are covered with this ITIL Transformation Guide book. So you can ask this question yourself. You can guide a team of people who can answer this question from different perspectives, having different backgrounds, and you can more or less identify how your company maps this picture, where your company stands. And it's important not to calculate an average. So for example, 10 people give you 10 different answers. It's not the idea to calculate an average. The idea is to better understand and maybe to identify these gaps. Why people think differently about the same things, about the same organization. So we will have some spread of measurements explaining how different people thinking about this organization in terms of how it's being governed. And then the next step, so this first step comes with understanding of how our current governance works. And the second step, the next step is stress tested against AI challenges, about what AI brings to this game, because this is essentially a game changer. And for this, the exercise is to use some common breaking points. So for example, decision velocity, compliance requirements, governance capabilities. If you think about these 10 specific AI risks, you will be able to ask a very specific question about how these risks could be realistically addressed by existing governance system. And for example, just looking at this slide as an example, I'm thinking about our own company. So for us, decision velocity is the most important challenge, because the decisions are made so slowly, and experimentation in AI is going so fast that these things have a great gap between those. And it's a challenge for us to address this gap, to adjust our own governance system so that we can safely proceed with experimentation, not to slow down, not to stop everything unless we got this control, but to commensurate these things between each other. So this was the step number 1, assessing and stress testing, and the key results: a documented governance baseline and documentation of where and why current governance system cannot cope with AI challenges. This is a level of understanding. This is an understanding of where we start. The second step is about determining requirements. How should we evolve? How should we adjust our governance system so that it becomes more efficient, more effective when dealing with AI specific risks? And the key results, key activities and key results that have same structure, same description. The key results here: a structured set of governance requirements and a prioritized list of capabilities. Because it's important to understand that governance is one of the most important organizational capabilities, levels of how this organization is managed. And essentially, it means that we will not be able to adjust the governance pattern in one day. It will take some time. And for this, we need to understand how to proceed, because we need to do faster than just let's agree on how our governance system will be working in 1 year, and after this 1 year we can proceed. So we need to do something right now, and yet we should understand that this change to our governance system might take some time. Step number 3 is design and implementation. Key activities here: adapt with the organization's existing governance pattern. So the idea is not to start redoing, redesigning, rebuilding this governance, because it will take some time, but start with some practical steps that might be taken with what you have right now. Start where you are, just one of the principles. And some key ideas here. Again, we will not be discussing every single line here, but some key ideas here to adjust what you have so that you can be a little bit better, one step closer to an effective AI governance. Build permanent governance capabilities, so adjust your model accordingly over time how you can. And also important thing, apply AI governance tools and models to design practical controls. And here we have a specific idea of how an effective AI risk management might be established. But do we have time? How much time do we have?
It's now 7 to 2, but we started like 15.
Yeah. So we're almost done.
No,
So just a short of overview of this process. So it contains 4 specific steps, and for each steps we have quite a specific description of how we can take the step realistically. First, apply functional classification, better understand what a specific AI application does, and not only pay attention to what how you are going to use it, but pay attention to what it can what it can do based on the embedded functionality. So when you buy this tool, when you start applying this tool, you might only be intended to use a small fraction of its functionality, but over time you will use something else. So start with understanding how this application works rather than how we are going to use it right now. The second step, and for this we have some specific classification model. We will cover each of the steps in more details in the next slides. Step number 2, identify relevant risks, and for this we have again a specific guidance on how to work with these specific risks, and these are risks that are connected to the tool itself, to the technology itself. So these are risks connected to what this application is doing. This is why this step comes after the functional classification step. Step number 3, assess contextual risk factors, and they are not about tools, they are about your organization, information this organization uses, people your organization works with, and things like that. And finally, come up with the effective risk profile and apply specific countermeasures. Step number 1, functional classification. For this, in ITIL Foundation, we introduced something that was originally called 6C model, and 6C model lists 6 functional areas where AI application might work. These areas are currently presented here as creation, when AI creates something based on the prompt; curation, when AI helps you to manage information and to keep it consistent and updated; clarification, when it helps to understand; cognition, when it digs for new patterns, identifies something that you are not aware of based on the data you have; communication, when AI is directly involved in communication with end customer, with people; and coordination, when AI through agentic capabilities orchestrates different processes, different things happening in the organizations. So these are 6C functions. They are not mutually exclusive, so in many cases one application uses a combination of these functions, and this classification helps you understand how application works and which risks this application brings, and even to understand how these risks could be evaluated in terms of their level to the organization. So some practical examples which we will not be discussing right now in all the details, but this classification, let me take a couple step back. These functions, they are not AI specific, they just work for AI applications in every domain. But the examples here are mostly about in using AI in IT management. But this example just show how these functions, how this functional classification can be applied. So creations, for example, generating answers to user questions; clarifications, for example, rewriting a knowledge article for easier understanding, and other examples like this. So this is a great example of how this 6C model could be applied when it comes to understanding how a specific AI application works. The second step is about understanding functional risks connected to this application. And here we provide a risk heat map, and this risk heat map connects these 10 key AI-specific risks to 6 functional areas of AI applications, and give them some measure basic on what we currently understand about the industry. And this is just it might be a good starting point. Obviously, this picture will evolve over time, and it's more or less relevant right now. At least this is what we believe in. But in the future, this picture will evolve. But it might be used as a starting point. And this evolution, we've been thinking about this. This evolution can some risks can be amplified through this evolution. Some risks could be downgraded through this evolution. But you might start thinking about this. picture, like if this application brings us this and this function, then we might have some specific risk profile to start thinking about. This is your starting point when it comes to better understanding which risks could be specifically connected to this type of functionality you're about to deploy. The third step is to apply contextual risk factors. And so before this, we just were talking about some risks connected to the applications themselves, not specific to your organizations. So contextual risk factors are about your organizations. And some examples, the most prominent examples here: data sensitivity, user impact, how many users do you have, and different user profiles you work with, the level of automation, regulatory environment, operational criticality, and stakeholder diversity. So these are the thing that first come into our minds when we think about specific factors for our organization based on what we do, based on which services we provide, and who are our customers. And then step number 4 is specific risk countermeasures, risk controls. And we have a couple of slides that just give you an idea. It's not an exhaustive list. It's not a specific algorithm to follow, but it's a great idea how we can use some specific countermeasures depending on which risks we have. For example, autonomy and decision making, some examples how we can address this risk, and so on and so on. So for 10 key risks, we have this list of examples, countermeasure controls that should be in place in order we can measure AI risks effectively. So this is the idea behind this AI risk management process. And again, it's just step by step, and each step is accompanied by a specific idea, specific set of information, reference list that you can use to better take the step to proceed with this. Step back to this model. So design and implementation, apply AI governance tool and models to design practical controls and countermeasures. And key results of this step: detailed governance design in integrating AI-specific oversight mechanisms, and a capability development and implementation roadmap, how to proceed with this in the future. And the next step is essentially just circular, regular improvement, more or less based on continual improvement model. Key activities here is establish operational cycles, review cycles at different levels. We need different frequency of the cycles, monitor effectiveness of what we are building, adapt to AI evolution, because the tools, the technology is constantly evolving, and we need to be aware of these changes and to react them appropriately, and manage stakeholders' feedback. So this is more or less the model of how we can proceed with to extend the existing IT governance system to effectively deal with AI challenges, AI risks. Some key takeaways, just to summary. Sorry, it was really, really fast, but just to digest what we've currently discussed, make some important notes. First, we adopt AI way faster than we actually can manage it, and we need to understand this gap, to accept this gap. It exists. We cannot remove it instantly, but we might be dealing with this. AI poses some specific challenging to existing IT governance system. Don't expect that your existing governance system could be effectively managing these risks unless it's proved. An effective AI governance system is more than just about control. It should be able to establish ethical use of AI. It should be able to support and drive your innovations, not just to control things and stop everything unless we have the full control. And new ITIL publications, this paper, one of the examples, new ITIL publications provide some practical guidance on how to take some first steps on this area. This is more or less a summary of what we are currently doing in this area. This is more or less a summary of what is presented in the white paper that you have in your bags. And this is more or less the end of the story, I guess. And now we have some slides about ITIL version 5.
To add a little, thank you very much, Dmitry. A lot to digest, I believe. Just a few heads up about what's about to happen in the few months to come, and how it will be building on top of what Dmitry just described. So the ITIL AI governance paper which you have, it's a foundation for the new module, which will become part of the version 5 qualification scheme. It sits aside of the designation path and will be available even without the prerequisite of the foundation, because we believe the audience for AI governance is wider than our usual, let's say, ITIL crowd. And that book, so the paper is about 20 pages long. That one will be about 150 pages long. And the most important difference between the two will be that the AI paper covers even less of the how than these slides are. It poses the right questions. It's very much complete when it comes to what, but it doesn't provide any guidance on how. The training and the official publication will be mostly focused on how to assess your current governance partner, how to define the specific requirements for effective AI governance, how to assess your risks, etc. So all the same things, but with a lot of practical recommendations. And there will be training and certification because that's how we do. Apart from this, there will be a few more books in ITIL version 5. They were mentioned earlier today by Adam, but I will just give you a brief timeline and where we are right now. So on 12th of February, you probably noticed if you are on LinkedIn that LinkedIn looked rather purple because everyone was posting their I have my ITIL foundation exam. That was the day of the public launch where people who had participated in beta sessions and training providers were finally able to post their exam results. And now it's available for everyone, and foundation book and the foundation exam and the foundation training can be accessed through usual channels. We are working right now on preparing a release of the next 3 modules, which will be product, service, and experience. Product and service will be based on the diamond model that Adam showed in the morning, the life cycle model, and we'll be showing how each stage of this life cycle is managed through the lens of the product vendor or service provider. The experience one is focused on not only the joint journey of 2 organizations, like in Drive Stakeholder Video in version 4, which some of you might have seen, but also on understanding and improving individual experience of users and customers on the consumer side and of employees on the provider side, because we believe that employee experience is a predictor of consumer experience. So that's the 3 books that will be launched publicly in March and will become available as books, as training, as certification. The next stage of the release will happen in April, and that will be 2 books that were mentioned. One of them was mentioned today. It's the Transformation. It's based on what currently is published as a How to Implement guide. It was published in August. If you are a member of PeopleCert membership, you probably had a chance to have a look at it. And this is a complexity native guidance on how to transform, how to run transformations. We really don't like the idea of implementing because it assumes you implement ITIL. No, you implement changes to your management and governance system. And important difference between this new guidance and everything we had before is that it's complexity aware and complexity native. It recognizes the fact that in our own terms of continual improvement, sometimes you do know where you are, you don't like it there, but you have no idea whether you want to be, let alone how to get there. So instead of assuming that we know the target and we can devise a plan to get there, and if we implement the plan, we will be there, we understand that in some situations, we know we don't like it here, it's wet and cold, we want to be warm and dry, but we don't know where to go and how to go. And we have to experiment, and we have to process those experiments, and we have to devise the ways of going in the right direction rather than to the right destination. And this is an idea that is hugely embraced in new ITIL. I dare say it's complexity native. So in the practice guides, in AI governance, in transformation, in continual improvement model, we assume that in many situations we don't know what is the right decision and we need to devise it first by experimenting. So transformation and strategy, which will be released in April. And finally in May, we plan to release the AI governance module, which is based on the content that Dmitry just presented, and also managing professional transition bridge for those who are either masters or managing professionals in ITIL 4, so they could, in one training, in one step, progress to the respective designation in ITIL 4. After we are done with all that, we will focus on updating the practice guides, because currently the practice guides are unchanged and the respective training and certification modules are also unchanged. And we want to introduce at least update of the terminology, which is a technical thing. It won't change your practices, but also Dmitry mentioned referring to those tools, to the ITSM systems. We have 66 criteria across 20 practices which are related to the use of AI, which basically reflect the practices and the way each of the management practices is using AI today. So rather than just ideas of how it can be done. And also for some practices there will be a significant update because we are focusing more on the product side of the life cycle. And for instance, service design should address how we design products and how we design services and how we integrate these two things. So that's the plan for 2026, but so far both the training and the practices remain the same and they will remain valid in the qualifications. Coming back to the topic of AI, I would like to highlight 4 areas where AI is particularly important and the way ITIL version 5 is addressing them. So first, foundation, experience, governance, and the practices. And if you look at the foundation, we need to ensure that everyone is aware of the new role AI is playing in our organizations. And the 6C model, which is officially named the ITIL AI capability model, is actually introduced from foundation on when we describe the information and technology dimension in the context of the 4 dimensions. We do introduce that model and explain how important it is to understand what we do with AI in our work context. And we also added some recommendations on the use of AI for every of the guiding principles and for many other relevant pieces. Experience. There is a lot of talk going on about AI being a co-worker, being a colleague rather than just a tool. And whether this is the right approach or not, we cannot deny that the user experience and employee experience is heavily influenced by interactions with AI. Whether it's an agent pretending to be a living, breathing person, or a copilot of some sort, or just a script, or just a prompt, we shape our users' experience with AI, and our own work experience is significantly shaped by AI. The experience book is addressing this. How do you work together with AI? How do you co-work with AI? And how do you impose AI influence on your users and customers? AI governance has already been addressed. We need to somehow control AI before it starts controlling us. And finally, I already mentioned the practices have a lot to add based on already existing and rather established use of AI. So we are adding that as well. That's a link to, if the very first slide was ITIL and AI in 2025, this can be called ITIL and AI in 2060, or it's actually called that way. So these are conveniently called ITIL and AI in 2026 and beyond. That's, I hope, somewhat well, informative and maybe even somewhat entertaining summary of what we do with AI and what we are doing with ITIL to help you deal with AI in your work. I think that was, we might have some time for questions.